Started, guys?
Yeah, as you can tell, we're extremely mature, highly professional, so yeah, I apologize in advance. My name is Brent White.
And I am Tim Roberts.
Yeah. And we're going to talk to you today about things that we do to bypass physical security controls and such.
We both work for NTT Security, Threat Services Group, so we do anything from technical to physical to social engineering and security awareness training, stuff like that. Our WeHackPeople.com, that's just a blog. That's where Brent and I keep a lot of our talks, some of our slides, and some of the references that we use throughout our presentation.
So probably goes without saying, not all hackers are bad. I know there's a pretty common misconception about hackers that when you hear that word, you think it's someone that's going to come like mug you in the parking lot and steal your baby. That's not us. There might be some out there like that, but not all of us are bad. One thing I do want to point out too, I know we're talking about unauthorized access, but just want to clarify the point when I use the term unauthorized, that is us taking on the role of an unauthorized user or some sort of person that's trying to do something malicious, but we always obviously have the proper approval before we do that, so we are not condoning anything illegal here.
So I kind of mentioned this before, this goes anywhere from pretexting to gathering OSINT, to doing phishing, and then leading into a physical compromise with, after you've kind of tested everything else. A lot of times our clients, they will have already done like their network application assessments, and they want to see their other attack vectors, what are the threats, or they want to do a full red team assessment. So we have it broken up into specialists, into different areas of their expertise or subject matter experts. One of the main things that we do though is Brent and I at least do physical control bypass, so that's kind of what most of this is going to be talking about. So getting into the facility and then getting access to your network or a data jack or just some physical copies of some information or sensitive data.
Yeah, so we've given presentations before on social engineering, and we've talked about war stories, things that we've done to actually compromise facilities. But the thing that's different about this talk is we're actually showing you basically every tool that we use, how we use it, and then we're also going to show how to mitigate against those certain attacks. We're not giving away all of our secrets, but a pretty good amount of things. Again, these are all items that you can buy publicly without having any sort of locksmith license or anything like that. And so that's kind of what we're going to go over today. So just some of the, I'm sure you guys have seen these. You can get some of these for really cheap. You can spend a lot of money on some high quality ones. But if you're wanting to go through and record what you're doing, make sure you check with the local laws and stuff. Some places that's illegal. Make sure that you check with that stuff first. But it's a good way just to easily document what you're doing as you're going through a facility, so that you're not always having to stop and lift your phone up and take pictures, things like that.
And some of the clients too, I mean, they agree if you work there, if you're inside of the building, and you're agreeing to be recorded, because I mean it's monitored, surveyed, and stuff like that. But you also want to double check with the client. A lot of clients like to see these things happen, so they want to see, well, how did you do that exactly? And sometimes pictures and documented evidence on a hard copy or something like that isn't as impactful as showing them a video of you doing it.
And obviously there are going to be different rules that apply if you're doing an assessment in a sensitive area, maybe a secret, top secret area, things like that. You're going to have a lot different rules there. So make sure those are things that you understand with the client before you go, recording a bunch of video. Things can get pretty ugly that way.
So this is just something we wanted to have fun with because we got a drone and we were like, hey, let's do something with this drone. Let's try to weaponize it. So we had like a Wemu. We had a few different things we were trying to use on it. And we just ended up strapping a Pineapple Nano on it. And it worked pretty well. So this is handy just for landing on top of the building and then having the access point on there for evil AP or whatever, or getting nearby. Ways to mitigate against this, because drone attacks are kind of becoming a bigger threat, is using like foliage, having trees and bushes and stuff like that, tall trees, heavy foliage, so they can't get close to look at badges or try to attack. Using tinted windows, having a busy roof. Things like that are things to consider. I wouldn't worry about a drone coming and trying to shoot up a place or something, but it's not Terminator yet. But there are several wireless attacks that can be used on a drone, and this is the most simplistic, remedial hacker script kiddie way of doing that.
Pretty cheap. So. And it's it took us a lot of time and a lot of research to figure out the perfect weight balance, so after about 5 minutes in industrial Velcro, we were good to go. Yeah. So
it was very technical.
So, when you're doing these physical assessments, sometimes you need to make sure that if you're doing your surveillance, and they do have a lot of security cameras. I know a lot of federal places specifically are pretty heavily monitored. So one that I was doing in DC, I didn't want to just walk around looking normal, so I went to a gift shop and did like the Forrest Gump running across the United States look there. So that kind of helped. And then, a quick war story too, was doing a physical against a hospital. And it was actually my first physical against a hospital. Wasn't really sure what to expect. And so after I'd been there for a while, realized like the sanitation crew wore like maroon scrubs, and nurses, they wore their own. And so I was like, well, that would be cool if I had those things. Where could I get it? And so I come around the corner and they have a gift shop with every type of scrub for sale that was used in that facility. And so that was a pretty easy one.
Yeah, another interesting thing is the black scrubs back there. Phlebotomists use black scrubs, and they go to several different hospitals. So they're constantly, it's usually different people. So they're coming in and out, and that's pretty easy to walk around the hospital. It's unfortunate, but it is.
Does anybody in here do physicals against facilities like hospitals, things like that? So, so one of the things you can do if you're walking around, if you don't have scrubs and you're just seeing what you can do, you can actually print off the patient satisfaction surveys, because that's a very important thing in that field. So it sounds like a pitch, but on wehackpeople.com, the ones that I've used before, I'll save you the time. You can just go there and download those and print them off and walk around with the clipboard. And if anyone says anything like, "Why are you in here?" just say, "Well, I'm just doing these patient satisfaction surveys." I'm like, "Well, you're not supposed to be in here." I'm like, "Sorry, I'm just a volunteer. I'm learning how to do this," and they usually will just let you go. So I live in Nashville, and so this next picture makes more sense. Wait for it. So a friend of mine was like, "You don't have, all hat, no cattle," and I was like, "It's okay, I play guitar." So I have my Wi-Fi pineapple in there. You
got to get a big gallon hat for that.
Yeah.
So lockpick sets. There's several lockpick sets. You guys been to Lockpick Villages or any hacker conference? Most of you guys probably played with lockpicks at some point in your life. These are two of the sets that we use. I like using the Creeper set by Sparrows. There's a few, tools that I like that I kind of interchange with it. But it's an easy in your pocket. It's flat back. It's solid. Got a great case, and so it's easy to get to and just kind of open up. The one on the right there, Brent usually uses that.
Yeah. So we both kind of have custom sets that we've used, like the picks that we find that are best for us. Something I want to point out too, if you're not very good at lock picking, don't try to figure out how to do it while you're on client site trying to get into their building.
I got this new city rake. I really want to.
Yeah, let me try this rake. So, just multi-tools. These are really good too if you're trying to get into a door and they actually have secured it properly and there's not really a gap underneath. You use under the door tool or something. If there's a plate that's exposed, just take the thing off, and then, do what you need to do.
And if you got a Geist that, justifies why you'd be doing that during business hours, that is helpful. So being a maintenance or contractor of sorts, a good way to do that too is obviously surveillance, but the visitor log at the front of most desks, either with a security guard or administration staff, it has a list of vendors, of authorized vendors on there. So and it's facing you so you can sign in, right? But if you're there asking a question and you get somebody to go in and ask a question and take a quick snapshot of that visitor log, it's helpful for developing guys when you do these on-site social engineering or physical assessments.
So some of the research that we've done is where we do these assessments, we don't always want to walk in with a big backpack on our shoulders. Sometimes that can be suspicious. So we try to figure out, okay, what's the least amount of tools that we can use? What's with the smallest profile where We can put them in a suit, or like this GPD Pocket, this mini computer. At this time I had Ubuntu, but I now have Kali Linux installed on it. That's small enough to fit in the small of my back, so I don't have to have a large laptop. And you'll see some tools I'm sure you're probably familiar with, some Hack 5 tools. The Milky Way, that's actual candy bar. So sometimes when you get into a place, let's say your nerves are, you've got your adrenaline going, you have some nerves. Tim and I, like, one of the things we like to do is like to find a place we can go hide for a little bit. It's usually the bathroom.
Usually the bathroom.
Yeah. So if you have nerves, if you just take a few bites of some food, it helps to suppress that fight or flight response, so that you can kind of refocus.
Cigarettes do that too sometimes.
Yeah. So I don't smoke, but something we like to do too, which it seems to work pretty much every time, is if there's a smoking area outside of a facility, you can just walk up, smoke, talk with someone, kind of build that rapport, that trust, and they'll eventually follow them in the building when you're finished smoking.
Yeah, this may be getting ahead of ourselves because we got a picture of it, but recently we did an assessment where we had stuck a Proxmark inside of a coffee cup, a Grande Starbucks cup. Had a little power pack in there too. And so I had that in my hand, and he had his Proxmark. We weren't sure if it's low frequency or high frequency. So I had mine set to low. He had his set to high in a muffin bag.
Yeah, I like muffins more than I should, so it was in a muffin bag.
So I had my hand on the coffee cup like this, and we were talking to somebody in the back while we were smoking with them. And their badges are just white badges. It doesn't have anything on it. So you just get a blank HID badge. I was like, hey man, I like your lanyard. Yeah, and so that was it. And then from there, cloned his badge and just emulated it. I didn't clone it. I just kept badging in with a coffee cup.
Yeah, and so one of the things we called out on that report was, so we tailgated the guy in from the first door, which didn't require a badge, and then you have the guard desk, and then you had to badge in. So the funny thing was, this employee, he badged in, and then Tim was in front and holds up his coffee cup, and then I'm behind and I hold up this like food bag. And the guy
we just wanted to see if the security guard would even pay attention. He wasn't even looking at the log or us. So.
He was right here with big glass windows and stuff, and he was like, I think he was playing a video game or something.
Badge in with a muffin?
He wasn't watching us badge in with our Starbucks. Yeah. So again, this is just for size, pen next to the laptop.
If you don't wear like little kid pants like Brent does, it fits in your back pocket too. So if you're a bigger person, it does. I have put that in my back pocket, or the back, small of your back, like Brent said. Yeah. It's really convenient.
Or if you wear yoga pants like Tim, they're stretchy enough. Right. Actually, I think this is GPD, not GDP. So, but I think Google will probably fix it for you. So one of my favorite tools is ridiculously cheap piece of plastic. I've gotten through more doors with this plastic shim than any other tool. Here's a quick video, and this just shows just how quick this attack is.
So this was into an executive's office.
I mean, I'll play it again. It's pretty fast.
Of course, they have like badge access control there, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so anytime, and again, these attacks will show you ways to fix those too. So, yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Oh yeah. So like the shim, there's the shove knife. There's several different tools like this. There's the little hook. I can't even think of the name of it right off.
Oh, the shrum tool.
The shrum tool. There's a lot of different tools.
I'll show you. Let's see.
Yeah.
This, so the shove knife and then shrum tool. That's $3, and I think that's $15.
And there's miniature versions. There's some you can stick in your wallet. There's some you can make out of your hotel room key. Yep. There's a lot of ways to do that. A lot of fire, I guess, like firefighters and stuff, they use these. But they're readily available at any kind of locksmithing, lock picking, a lot of stuff. Did you have a question? No.
Yeah, he asked, do we ever run into issues going through airport security? No.
I've been stopped several times. Like, actually, Brent, shoves it in his bag in a weird way.
There's a certain angle.
Yeah, but I get stopped a lot for my lock picks more. But this, I've never been stopped for, which is interesting because it is about that long. You know, it's,
so that's an old wallet of mine. Here's my new one, and it's in there. The lock picks and things are. I need more hands. Yeah, so it's just easy to grab.
And if you are concerned about airport, again, you can just cut it out of your hotel room key.
So here's a quick video. Tim, you want to tell them what's going on in the video?
Yeah, so this is the back of a healthcare facility, I believe, or a financial facility. So they do like data processing for financial data. In the back, they had a PTC camera, but the dome was all scratched up and old, and it was like the sealant wasn't on there, so it was humid and moist inside. It was really bad. So and moist. And then later on, talking to security guards, even they said, yeah, it's obstructed. So we got to the back. There was just badge access. We just used the the shove knife. So,
yeah, there's Tim.
What's funny about this facility, in some of these places, they're like, oh, you're not going to get in. We got a guard there, and they're armed, or they're blah, 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 and we got cameras everywhere.
So if you watch right here, it's really quick, but it actually goes over the striker really quick and pulls it in. So
it's essentially kind of what you're doing with the old credit card is the door thing, but it's just pulling from the other side.
So a tool that I like to use, this is the only thing that's actually given me issues through TSA, and so I actually put it in a Pelican case with my gear, and I will check it. Because it's about this long, and it definitely looks like a weapon. This was made for by and for first responders, so it doesn't require a locksmith license. So you've heard people talk about, well, if you want to avoid things like the plastic shim attack, put a striker plate. Well, this thing goes over top of the striker plate and still does the same thing, so you're bypassing the striker plate, basically. And it's in ourgear.net if you want to order some of these. He's a cool guy. I think he makes them in his garage or something, but he's really cool. So one of the things that I've done now, instead of carrying this large weapon-looking thing around with me, is I can also do the same thing. So this goes in the door, and then you just push it down, and then it bypasses that. And these are images from their website. So I just use a coat hanger and do the same thing. So I just snip here, and then I put a slight bend in it. And then I can actually go around the striker and just pull it open, and it's just a piece of coat hanger wire.
And if there's a big enough gap, you can get it around there and grab the bottom of the coat hanger too.
Yeah, just pull it towards you. So, how do you fix that? All those attacks that we just talked about, the shove knife, the shrum tool, the piece of plastic, the coat hanger, all of those things are possible for a couple of reasons. The main one being this security pin is usually not set properly. Where it goes in the door, that's usually too wide, so the security pin is out. For it to actually work, it needs to be pushed in. So whenever your door is shut, this needs to be engaged. When that's engaged, I'm not going to be able to shove a piece of plastic in there and bypass that latch. So just make sure, if you're not sure how to set that, have a locksmith come out. One of the issues that we've seen a lot in facilities is that it's usually maintenance guys that'll come install new locks and things. They don't really understand, I don't need to
sound mean. Some of them understand, but that's not what they're specialized in. And so I think it goes back to the multiple hat thing. Oh yeah, where you're the desk admin. That means you're the security guard for the front too. It's like you're giving too many people, roles that they're not specialized in oftentimes.
Yep.
So the crash bar tool, this is another great tool. Sparrows has it. We mentioned them because we do use a lot of their stuff. There's several other companies out there you can get these tools from. You can make your own tools. The crash bar tool, if there's a big enough gap, you can just shove that in there and open it from the inside. It's essentially like the under the door tool for crash bars. And outside of the large one there, it's about this size, but it's pretty heavy and dense. It's also sometimes difficult to get between. Unless there's a huge gap in the door, you can't really shove that thing in there. Some of the doors, like here, for example,
yeah, like that's a perfect
you could do
example
that.
here.
That's a huge gap.
Here.
But one of the things that Brent did was he made this little tiny one, and it's not as dense and it bends when you pull, but it does work. You just have to reset it, and it's easy. It's lightweight. You can carry it in your bag. You can even put it in the small of your bag.
Yep. Or your yoga pants.
Or your yoga pants.
So another tool. This is also made from the same company that I showed you with the Zauer tool that goes over the strike plate. This is a thumb turner tool. This is really useful in retail locations.
Like with the sliding doors, because usually you can pull it open enough to get a gap.
Yeah, so on this, you see the tool going through the gap here. Once it's around, you position it on the thumb turner for the deadbolt, and then you actually turn the handle, and this turns, and you can open the deadbolt from the other side of the door. It requires a decent gap, which is pretty common at retail locations where the doors often slide open and shut, glass doors typically.
It requires patience too. It's not, it's not something to just kind of pop in there like a Brent did with a plastic shim.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer.
So I mentioned the under the door tool. Many people are familiar with this. You can make it at home. Work.
Here we go.
So this is me in the hotel room. So the under the door tool is really easy. You just slide it under the door, you catch the latch handle, and you pull down on it.
Right there. If you notice, now it's behind the latch, and he's pulling the wire.
So almost every hotel that you stay in, this is vulnerable to. So, a good way to prevent that is to shove a rolled up towel in there, or having the door guard. One of the things that I love is being on site somewhere doing an assessment, and they have like a window, and then I can sit there, somebody can watch and be like, hey, go to the left, go to the blah, blah, blah. So don't have windows on your doors. Have, make sure that you have the bottom and the sides and where the door seals, so I can't shove a tool under there. I was on site, we were doing a walkthrough, Brent and I, it was overt, so we were just going through saying, hey, let's just test this and this. They're like, you're not going to be able to shove that under the tool or under the door. I'm like, man, you're using you have carpet. I bet I can. And so
he was like, no, we've tested that. It's not going to work. I'm like, okay, let's try it real quick.
The carpet has that give. So even if you do have that brush guard at the bottom or some kind of plate, note what kind of surface is beneath it, because that carpet pushes down, especially to shove this thing under.
Yeah. And long story short, we opened the door with the under the door tool. What Tim was talking about, if you take a hand towel, roll it up really tight, and actually put it in there, it prevents the tool from being able to engage behind the lever handle. So just a little personal travel tip here.
Request to exit sensors. Those are some of the most exploited ways of getting into facilities that have, especially biometric or bio scans like retinal or fingerprint. Some kind of two-factor authentication that maybe you don't have time to sit there and try to bypass. And just use some canned air or use a vape pen or something. The thing is, the canned air is kind of loud. It is not as dense as something like a vape, so I wouldn't use that on site. But the canned air I do use on site. Brent and I have used this a number of times. The reason why is because of the density of the air, but also the temperature fluctuation. So a lot of these sensors, they are temperature variant. So it doesn't matter if it's too high or too low. If there's a change in that temperature, if there's a fluctuation in that temperature, and with the density of turning canned air upside down and having that cold gas spray out, it opens the door pretty easy.
Yeah, that coupled with the actual motion of it. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this rec sensor right here, just by looking at it? Yeah, location. That's exactly right. So if we spray the canned air through here or anything with motion and with the temperature variance, right away that's going to pick that up. So yeah, location. It needs to be further out. and it needs to be angled out in a way where it's only going to pick up motion and temperature from people actually heading to the door instead of being close enough to actually like spray canned air or something.
You know, and you may have a temperature sensor that is just for warmth, and you're like, well, this will show your canned air. This is Brent and I in a server room, and they were so proud of these cages.
It was a brand new place. We're like, we spent, you know, so much. There's a very large amount of money. Like they have retinal scanners, like all this stuff. We're like, you guys aren't going to get in there. So this is us after we got in there, opening up these cages. There's a rec sensor over here on this side. I didn't have canned air, but Tim had his under the door tool, and I had hand warmers. So I have this little bracelet that says Hack the Planet on it, and I just wrapped it around there. And, you know, and so you can see as, wait for it. Okay, there we go. So here's the badge reader. It's red right now. Here in a second, once that goes up, if you look right there, and now it just turned green, and there we go.
Well, the warmth in motion.
Yeah, so any sort of temperature variance, whether it's cold or warm, that's all that sensor looks for with motion.
And some of them are specific to just warmth. You know, even like the hand plates and stuff like that some people use in place of request for exit, you have to touch it. Same thing. It's heat.
Yeah. Let's show it one more time. And the gap between those doors is gigantic.
No, even the gap. I mean, just stick it through the fence.
Yeah, I could stick it through the fence.
I mean, so when you guys are, if you're decision makers or you're talking to your decision makers, you know, it doesn't matter. Be like, oh, look at this fancy, expensive cage I got here that's compliant with blah blah blah. Maybe, but look. So consider the offense from the offensive perspective. You know, how would somebody try to break into this if they were really diligent? Another thing is that this did not go all the way to the ceiling. So if you had tiny fingers, like Brent and I couldn't do it, but if you were small, you could climb up and just climb over that fence.
Bring an InfoSec squirrel.
Yeah, or if you want to parkour over it or whatever, but it was interesting. And the way they had their cables ran, they had different areas caged off, so they had to be physically segmented. But the way their cables were ran at the top, there were these gaps. And so you could crawl through these gaps to get to the segmentation. So again, you know, their maintenance guys installed these. I mean, not discrediting maintenance, because there's some very, very intelligent maintenance people that work facilities and they do all that stuff. But just make sure that whoever's putting this stuff in considers the threats, not just, you know, the dollar signs.
Yeah, here's another just bypassing with canned air so you can see what that looks like. And I'll show you.
And you don't even have to be that high. You can be from the bottom.
Yeah,
like I did it from the bottom of the door too, and it's still dense enough that it will reach that request for exit sensor.
Yep. So you can see again, it's here. It's pointed straight down at the door. If it were out a little bit and then angled further out, this would be extremely difficult to do from any height. So there's the sensor showing that. So how do you fix those things? How do you keep people from putting in, you know, the crash bar tool or, you know, bypassing our rec sensors with things like that? It's an astragal, so a metal astragal that basically fills that gap, covers that gap from the bottom all the way to the top of the door. That's a really quick way to sort of mitigate against those attacks. A lot of facilities use these. They work well, except if you tailgate someone and on your way through, you stick this up there. Obviously, try to make it look a little more neat than that. I had to snap the picture really quick. You can use gaffer's tape. You can get black gaffer's tape, and you can actually use it multiple times, and it doesn't leave residue or anything. But this, I was in a pinch, so some Scotch tape and a paper clip. Once you throw that up there and this closes, you can see it sticking out there. What happens now is the magnet, it's not strong enough, so even if that door is locked, someone hasn't been there a while and it's reset and it's locked, you can just walk up to it and just pull it open. Just like a normal door.
But the badge reader will still show it as locked, so it's not tripping the sensor for a security guard to be like, wait a minute, this door is ajar.
Yeah, it doesn't show that it's propped open or anything. So, quick tip. How do you fix that? Well, we've seen locations where they actually use, I can't remember the name of it. It's these mechanisms that where the striker actually goes in the door. Those lock. They're like teeth, and they lock. And then once you swipe your badge, they unlock, and it lets you actually open the door. Yeah, and it actually gets rid of this altogether.
Or if you see a little gap up there, make sure there's not a picture.
Yep. So our number one way that we get into places, obviously, is tailgating. Just exploiting that part of humans where they naturally want to be nice. Most people avoid confrontation. There's so many different creative ways you can tailgate, all the way from being a guy that's having a very angry conversation on a phone, to just sneaking in behind someone that's not really paying attention, or even showing up with pizza or balloons or something where people will say, oh, this guy's got his hands full, let me help him in.
The key to tailgating is to not look like you're tailgating. So, I know that sounds stupid, but retinal scanner, for example. So say I had badge and retinal. If you just pretend a badge and you catch that door, you're obviously tailgating, man. So go through the motion. It doesn't matter if it turns red or not. They often don't pay attention to the beep that it makes or the light color. Or just go through the motions of putting your eyes to the retinal scanner, standing there, doing your thing, or putting your fingerprint on there. If you're concerned about, your eyes being taken pictures of or something, whatever. But you have to go through those motions. You have to look like you're supposed to be there. And if you don't, then someone's going to turn around and be like, hey, wait a minute, you got a badge in.
Yeah, it was pretty recently when we got into this one place, we were going through the motions, and the guy that we were actually following in, Tim was putting his eye down to the retinal scanner, and the guy was like, you don't have to use that. It's not hooked up right. And he still let us in.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. And then another facility recently, too, is when we were following this lady in after a smoke break. She badged in, the receptionist was there, and so Tim, he was badging in, and it was like, it beeped, but obviously it didn't work. And then I didn't even have a badge. I just walked up to it and gave it a high five just to see if she was paying attention like that, and then just walked right on in. So just if you have the kind of show that confidence, and you just get it in your mind like, I'm supposed to be here, I work here, and get that mindset, that actually will show through with your body language. And people can pick up, if you have a really nervous, awkward energy, people will pick that up, and you're going to stand out. So
also, if you're paying your security guards, whether it's like a contractor or whatever, if they got the badge log in front of them, this is a way to help. Because everybody, it doesn't matter how much security awareness training you take, it doesn't matter how security conscious you are. People get in the routine of doing the everyday grinds, and you coming in and out, whatever. Tailgating has always been a problem. I've been doing this for at least 6 years, and that is the number one way I first get in, usually if it's within production hours or business hours. And so the way to prevent that, security guards, look at the logs, make sure it's separate. There are different logs. It's not the same dude badging in several times with a coffee cup and a muffin. It's not, somebody forgetting to badge in. It's just one dude and 3 guys walked in, so looking at that stuff.
Yeah, I know you guys have probably been hammered to death with security awareness training this, security awareness training that. One of the things that we really like to suggest with security awareness training, because it is important, I'm not knocking that at all, is do regular assessments, even if it's employees to say, hey, so-and-so, next week can you just walk in without your badge and see if anybody says anything, and then let people know, hey, this is going to be an ongoing thing. If you catch someone doing that, then you go in for a drawing for a gift card or something, like a $100 Amazon gift card. That way people are going to pay attention and be like, oh, is it you? Were you the one I was supposed to catch? And then kind of make a game out of it and just let people understand the importance of it. So just a way to incentivize people to let them, give them a reason to actually care.
And also, outside of just the quarterly or annually security awareness point-and-click training that a lot of corporations and agencies do, And it needs to be a cultural shift. It's not just cyber threats either. It's physical threats to safety of workers, of people, of the facility, of a lot of things. So, of an angry former worker coming in, an active shooter situation, things like that. These are all part of physical security. It's not just the cyber threats. You know, us getting in and putting in a Dropbox or getting access to your core switch. Yeah, that's awesome. But what if I come in with an explosive or something? You know, so of course we don't test for that stuff, but those are things that need to be considered. Even in your tabletop exercises for disaster recovery, if you guys do business continuity and disaster recovery tabletop exercises, this is also an excellent avenue to help say, hey, here's what on-site physical social engineering or covert threats might be.
Yep. So one of the things that I've been playing with is if we do clone a badge, trying to clone a badge, but there's some sort of two-factor authentication with PinPad or something. Something we can do is I can get a highlighter, not the ones that are like, you know, smudge resistant because those dry really fast. But if you can find like an old school Sharpie, send them all to me. Or if you want to keep one for yourself, what you can do is run up and you can paint all the numbers really quick with a Sharpie.
Not like a black Sharpie, like a...
Yeah, just a normal Sharpie. And this really only works if they are metal buttons. If they're plastic, obviously it's going to kind of dry on there a little bit, or the rubber, it doesn't really work as well. So you paint that, and once someone badges in, you can run up to it and turn on the little pocket UV light, and it will show you the buttons that they push. It'll show their fingerprints on that. So that helps to reduce the amount of guesses that you have to have with trying to guess their PIN if you're unable to shoulder surf and see it as they punch it in.
Yeah, these aren't like 12-digit pins or anything. I mean, they're usually like four, a combination of fours.
Yeah. And this next one, shout out to Deviant Olam on this. He's done a lot of research for items that use the same key that have been rekeyed. And so from that, you know, watching his talks, you have basically a master door keying key for this access control. So basically, when you see these door keys and it is rekeyed, this is my key ring. You can just walk up to it and open it, pull the panel open, and there's a postal button on one side. So you can just push that and it will open whatever door is assigned to that. So you don't even have to have a badge or anything. So if you look up Deviant's talk from Wild West Hackfest last year, he'll go through this, and it's basically the keys that are common for filing cabinets. And so is this key? I can't remember if it's like a C1 or 220 or something like that. I should have written it down for you guys, so sorry for not doing that. But basically, this key is used for jukeboxes, RVs, security panels, many things, and they're usually keyed the same. So just by having this, you have a good chance of being able to open numerous things. Same thing with these common filing cabinet keys, and then, as I mentioned, it's basically like a master door key. The thing that's kind of sucks about this, I bought all of these, I bought most of them from Amazon, and the other two from a key service that sells to the public. So it wasn't anything, you know, as like in depth. It was a simple Google search.
So when we do get in, like, so if we're not wanting to do social engineering, for example, the fire escape, usually those sensors are turned off during production hours because it's ingress, egress, people go in and out, or they go out and may just be exiting. So for lunch especially, you know, you can catch those doors. But if you're trying to do it during after hours or during business hours or something like that, picking those locks, you know, you got to make sure that the fire alarm is disabled. But it's usually a generic tumbler lock on some of these fire escape doors. So during production hours, it's kind of easy to pick those very quickly instead of looking real shady there, trying to pick a lock in the middle of the day.
With your hacker hoodie and ski mask on.
Your Hack 5 stickers and fat patches everywhere.
Sure, it says I'm going to rob you. Stay away.
Service elevators. Another thing is a lot of elevators, some companies and agencies, they have badge restricted floors. Or even the elevator, you can't even go anywhere. You get on there, it's like, oh crap, I got to scan my finger, or I got to scan my badge. You know, there's some talks out there on how to bypass this. There's some elevator keys you can get to, some of the older elevators, but just go to the service elevator, and if they have that, usually that goes to every floor.
Yeah, so this particular one went to, as Tim said, it went to every single floor, and there was no requirements for any sort of authentication. And the cool thing about service elevators too is they're typically off of like a main lobby or any sort of high traffic area. They're usually sort of back in different hallways or something, because they tend to keep the high traffic, like maintenance or sanitation or whatever it might be. They don't really want those things going through like the main lobby where there might be clients or things like that. So you're out of view typically, and you usually have like unrestricted access to what floor you want to go to. So now we're gonna pick on padlocks for a little bit. So, can you see, real quick, can you see a common theme over here for the pictures we've used?
Master. Yeah. So people think, you know, master lock, oh, whatever. We see master locks everywhere. I mean, there'll be some like very secure facilities. They'll spend thousands of dollars on their electronic controls and their fences and their gates and their
all the
super
sensors
strong
on all the stuff.
Yeah, and then they got this like a master lock number 5 on it or something. You know, it's some of these are they're just super crappy locks, and you know, if you can't pick them, then you know you can usually shim them, and it's pretty easy to do. Even the combo locks and things like that. That's how. I mean, even with the 2 teeth, it doesn't matter.
This one, if you stare at it hard enough, it opens.
Yeah. You know, some of those videos you've seen, like, you know, people hitting them, you bang it on the side with a rock, and it opens. I mean, it's kind of like the movies. It works. Some ways to fix it. You know, this isn't like the most secure way, but, you know, cheaper alternatives to a better than master lock, tumbler lock, like a crappy, you know, one like we had listed. There's a few we list here, some suggestions. You know, I know a lot of people use dimple locks too. Dimple locks can be picked too.
It takes
it's harder.
time. It takes time, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically you get what you pay for with that, and don't always go for something that you can just run out to a hardware store and pick up real quick. Put some time and research into it. And again, these are usually the most trusted.
Yeah, and you may not think, oh, okay, well, it's just the power generator. Well, yeah, it's a power generator. That goes off. I mean, you may have your backup power supply, but, you know, that's still going to put some damage in there, right?
That would be considered denial of service attack?
Probably, yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left, so we'll kind of go through here. So this is a new tool, or new to us. Anytime we see exposed hinge pins, you just walk up to that and take a bump hammer for bump keys, or an actual hammer, and just pop them, and you can actually hit them enough where they'll shoot up, and you just catch them in the air with your hand, and then set the door aside and go in. That's usually better for after hours.
Or if you're pretending to be doing, like you're with the facility. Taking pictures of keys, this works sometimes. This actually worked with us once. We got into a facility, into the security control room, picked a crappy wafer lock aluminum box. In there they had a bunch of keys to their vehicles. They also had the hard copy key to an alternate data facility. So we were supposed to visit that facility the next week. So we're like, oh, well, that's handy. So we took a picture of it, went to Lowe's, went back to the hotel, and played arts and crafts until we filed a key that mimicked the size, and we were able to get into there by using a key that we took a picture of. So other people have done this too. This isn't like some crazy, you know, magic. It's common, especially if you use some crappy locks that just have, you know, basic tumbler locks and such.
Yeah, and something too, it's not listed here, but if you move into a new facility that you're renting or something, or even a house you just bought from somebody, first thing you should do is change the locks, because you don't know who still has a key from the previous owners. So you should do that. And real quick, I know again we're running low on time. Badge emulation. A simple Google search usually it will show employees at some sort of a party or barbecue or something within the company, or hey, I'm so happy with my new job. Here's a badge for my new job. So before we even show up, we know what we can do just for a quick Photoshop to create some badges.
Yeah, just look at look at Instagram or Twitter. You can find tons of people posting. Another thing, like barcodes, they'll post like their student IDs and they'll post their work IDs, and then it's got the barcode on there. They won't think anything of it, and then you just scan it with one of your phone apps and read the barcode. And, oh, it's got your social in there.
Cool.
That's neat.
So badge cloning. We use everything that you can buy online real easy. Proxmark 3, Proxmark 3 Easy. Simple badge cloning. So this is a tool that I love from Dangerous Things. So you can walk up to any sort of badge reader and it will light up and let you know if it's reading in low frequency or high frequency.
So that's handy when you don't have like a muffin or with a high frequency muffin and a low frequency coffee. Then I mean, it's just the size of a business card. It's self-powered. It's not. Yeah,
it doesn't require a battery either, which is cool. Badge interception, again, if there's a badge reader or something in a parking garage or something, we just implant some devices. Basically pull it off the wall, implant it, go sit in our car. Depending on which model you use, you can connect via Bluetooth or via Wi-Fi. And as people scan their badges, we then get those numbers. And that's where it would be handy for painting the pen pad, like I showed earlier, with the Sharpie, and then running up.
Or replaying it. The Bleaky will let you replay the last scanned badge on some of those.
So here's where we're talking about badge cloning. One of the things we love to do is to actually put this inside of a clipboard. I was talking about the physical with the hospital. We do this all the time. We'll have it hidden in the clipboard. We'll go up to people and say, hey, we're doing badge inventory. You see your badge, and they'll hand it to us, and we'll set it on there and write some numbers down, but we just clone their badge.
Especially if you've got a long name or a complex name. It's like, oh, can I borrow your...
So
kind of write your name down and get close enough to write it with the badge.
Yeah, here's the low-frequency muffin and high-frequency coffee in there. And it's so easy to do, just be creative about it. So many ways you could hide those. Here's a quick video of, we had to sanitize a lot. Basically, Tim went up to a security guard, cloned his badge, and then to get to the man trap with his Proxmark, he's just basically walking and replaying it, and you see the glass just opened to go in. So.
Security guard was nice, though. He's easy to talk to.
USB attacks. Don't do this. This is the service desk. This is the computer. There's the USB ports. On the opposite side, don't do that.
Social engineering, we won't get into this too much, but I think one of the guys that we use quite often is that we're doing an enterprise security assessment, or we're doing an internal audit for badge access control, or we're doing a NIST audit. Like just saying something like that.
Just a bunch of things. We heard your network is slow. We're going to check that out.
And
that's great. Networks are always slow.
Right, and if there's two of us, one of us will be the employee there as kind of the escort, and the other is the vendor or the contractor. And, that way he can ask me and interject, and we can play off each other. So it's easier to do with multiple people. Sometimes it's easier to do with one person. But, yeah.
There's another one. There's Tim putting in a keylogger while I'm talking to this lady here. This one, we're talking to the security guard. She let Tim get behind the desk. This is the binder full of badges. He has his clipboard back there cloning badges.
Having a good time,
having a good time. Keyloggers, I like to put on the things that I'm actually going to implant and leave. I like to put with gaffer's tape, write in big letters, do not remove. That way if someone sees it, like, I'm not going to touch that. This is basically the USB rubber ducky, but it has a Wi-Fi access point in it. So you can plug that in and walk away. It's got a pretty good distance on it for pretty good range. You can inject commands that way. Here's the land. You can see the land turtle. Do not remove.
You can put Dropbox.
Do not remove.
Yeah. Like your Raspberry Pi, you got a Dropbox or whatever. If you got an old school phone plug, like.
I mean, air freshener.
Air freshener, yes. It's funny on the right here, these are the employee records. I got into the HR office, and employee records, they had on the tab the last name and the first name, and then they had their social security number on the tabs. And so they were all organized by that. I didn't have to look through it. I could just take a picture of all the records, like the files, the tabs.
This is a security access control room we got into. This is me disabling security cameras.
Also, if you got, don't have your vending machines next to your server room if you don't have floor-to-ceiling walls.
Yeah. This is right outside of a cafeteria right at lunchtime, and people were coming in and out. And some people looked, but nobody ever said, like, hey guy, why is your head in the ceiling on top of our
So I
vending
just crawled
machine?
over and got into the data center from there. Your shutter bins, don't do that. Those shutter bins suck. Don't
I feel
use
like
them.
an auctioneer. It's like,
Yeah. Oh, but
20 years old.
So.
Yeah, unlock stations. Lock your stuff when you walk away. Don't leave keys. And then this is a ladder in the video I showed earlier, bypassing the cage. They left ladders in every cage for us.
That's where the cables are
yeah.
ran at the top.
So, there you go. Don't put things like this on doors or anything, because that's what I'm going to go for.
There's usually snacks in those.
Yeah.
So.
Don't leave Post-its. Don't use these things. Yes, we've seen things like
People
this.
actually use that.
Clear text findings, and it's awesome.
All right, I'm just going to let you guys, if you want to take a picture of this.
And it'll be online too.
Yeah. It's, again, we mentioned this earlier, it should be security culture, it shouldn't be just basic security awareness training. Clean desktop policies, minimum baseline configurations.
There you go. Just 1 second.
Oh, my bad.
Take a picture, but I'll change it before you get your phone.
You got to be quick.
Jeez. Desk policy, and then last one, yeah. We found this as a Google search, but you would be surprised on some of the really stupid stuff you see. I don't have time for any war stories. If you guys have questions,